to the Big Picture Manatee, where our mission provides a nonpartisan space to listen, learn, inform, engage, and educate the public about issues in Manatee County and that are affecting them. I'm Sherry Courier with a little over 30 years of experience in local government, and my colleague here today with me.
Hi, I'm Misty Servia. I also have about 21 years in county government as a county commissioner and as an urban planner in this region. Glad to be here.
You might notice we're missing our third colleague, Reggie Bellamy. Just unable to be here today, and he'll be joining us again for our next episode. So today we're going to talk about the top 3 hot topics in Manatee County government over the last few weeks. There's a lot of topics, but these are the top 3 hot topics, right, Misty?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to choose from, but yeah, we narrowed it down to 3.
There is. So first, we're going to address something that just recently happened. So on October 5th, the Board of County Commissioners passed by a vote of 5-1. 5-1? Is that right? I'm so sorry.
I think Commissioner Turner was not there.
That's right. The gutting of the wetland protection and policies from the comprehensive plan. I know our listeners really want to hear a lot more about that. So Misty, I know you've been following that closely. Tell us what that means.
You know, this is something that really made me stop in my tracks. This was a big one for me. And I've been thinking about what it means now that it's been approved, now that we no longer have these extra wetland protections that we've always relied on. And here's what I start thinking about. I think about the push to go past the FDAB, the Future Development Area Boundary, which is all but certain. I mean, we've had several developments approved east of that line. It doesn't look like the board is interested in holding that line. And so as we continue to sprawl out to the east, I started thinking, how is this going to impact what we're doing? And I started thinking about the Myakka River, which I think there's already a development that's been approved along the Myakka River. And, you know, if you know a little bit about our rivers and our estuaries and our waterways, everything kind of flows from the east out to the Gulf. It ultimately gets out to the Gulf. And the Myakka River goes through our Charlotte Harbor estuary. That's another cool thing about where we live. We are close to 3 national estuaries. We have the Sarasota Bay National Estuary, the Tampa Bay National Estuary, and the Charlotte Harbor National Estuary. So as we see development happening out east, and especially along these waterways, by the way, the Myakka River is a wild and scenic waterway. I don't know how that plays into this, but there's going to be less protection. So there's going to be more runoff, more pollution, and less treatment of this water that goes into the river that ends up in our estuary and ultimately out into the Gulf. And so I started thinking about that. And, you know, as long as I've been a planner, which is over 34 years now, excuse me, we've had that national estuary down in Charlotte Harbor. I think they started acquiring land back in the 70s when I was just a kid. And so for like 40, 50 years, the state of Florida has been buying this land at that estuary for a lot of reasons, right? But to protect the water that ultimately flows into the Gulf, to help endangered species, to protect old Florida. I mean, a variety of reasons. And I started thinking, how is it going to be compromised with all this development that we're going to see, a mad dash out east? How is that going to be compromised? And I think the answer is we don't know. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we're going to know for years, probably. It's easier to reflect back and go, oh, we're seeing this because of these things. But it's hard to kind of predict what's going to happen. And for people who ask, why are these estuaries important? You know, just think about one thing. Think about our fishing industry in the state of Florida. These estuaries is where all the baby fishes grow up to become big fishes out in the Gulf of Mexico. And that's just one thing that they offer. So I don't know how this is going to impact the estuary, but I'm really worried about it. And I think that a lot of these commissioners who made this decision, well, probably all of them, won't be in office when we finally know, may not even live in this community when we finally know, and we'll all be left to clean up the mess. So it's disturbing to me, to say the least.
Yeah, disturbing to a lot of people that showed up to talk. I know there wasn't actually a good schedule from the standpoint of really workshopping this topic and fully letting the public participate. And it sure seemed like everybody really had already made their decision that day. Without much, just basically letting people speak. But there's a considerable amount of disregard for what the public was bringing forward, and a lot of experts as well.
Yeah, scientists. Yeah, it's really different now than it ever was. Yeah, the public did not have a voice in that. And here's the other thing I want to say. So I keep hearing that our board is so conservative. Um, the state of Florida probably spent hundreds of millions of dollars acquiring the Charlotte Harbor National Estuary. I don't know how much money was spent, but I'm sure it was a lot over 50 years. And now it's almost like what we've done will work against those dollars.
Right.
So I don't know how that's fiscally or any way conservative. It just blows my mind. But anyway, it is what it is, and we will see where it leads us, and we'll have to deal with it because we'll be here when hopefully we'll be here when
Right.
all that stuff comes around to tell us what happened. But hey, let's switch subjects. Let's switch gears a little bit, and let's talk about the county administrator. What do you know, Sherry?
Well, this is really our hot topic number 2, and we've been reporting since June. If you remember, we came and reported to our viewers that the county was undertaking a national search for the next county administrator, and they engaged with a firm, Colin Basinger and Associates, and budgeted $25,000 to go through this process. Back in June, they actually extended it to July, and in July they had a pretty large group of candidates to go through, and they brought those back to the board, and the board narrowed that list. And there was considerable talk in July, late July, about narrowing the list down. And then all of a sudden, the first to second week of August, we had 2 candidates, one of which had not applied initially, but was a person from our internal county government, and then one of the candidates that was in the lower list. And so that was Charlie Bishop, who has been with the county for a considerable amount of time and been a deputy county administrator and a department director for quite some time. And then Andrew Butterfield, who is an administrator from up in the Clearwater area. What was interesting, though, is all of a sudden then on September 12th, not only did we get a brand new deputy county administrator, Brian Parnell, who sounds like he's got some good background, a professional engineer, registered in Florida, and also in certified an energy manager. So that's an important area in the county. Was confirmed as a deputy county administrator, which I think was a little confusing to everybody because the thought I think is that the county administrator's position would choose the folks that worked for them. But unbeknownst to us, later in the meeting that day, there was a selection for county administrator, and that was Charlie Bishop, who as well. And Charlie's background, he's been working pretty hard in the deputy county administrator's role for a number of years, and now he is leading the way.
Yeah, and why do you think they ditched the whole national search to then just choose someone that was right there?
I don't know, really. I would have to say I don't know that insider information, but I think that it's hard job to select someone from out of the area, although that's what was promised to the community by this whole group of county commissioners. And I think, it was maybe easy to select someone that they knew, that they trusted, that they felt knew the county. Not to say that can't be a good thing. Obviously, I went through a similar process like that, but I don't think that the community as a whole is pleased that it wasn't followed through with the national search as they promised.
Yeah, and Charlie didn't even apply for the job, right? I mean, his name came up and then somehow he
Uh,
got it.
right. I mean, that's what we heard. We heard, as just like everyone else, that there was some concern about the finalist, and that he rose to the top after really around the time Lee Washington, who was the acting county administrator up until the very first part of August, resigned and left the county. And that kind of pushes us towards our third hot topic, which is, about his effort to bring forward. We've been reported to us as a whistleblower. And I think the folks watching or wanted some background or impact on what we might think about something like that, from the standpoint of me having a county administrator background and you a county commission background, because this whole concept of this whistleblower complaint involves those two positions within the county. So what's your take on that happening?
Yeah, well, it was shocking, and I think it was courageous of Lee Washington to write up the whistleblower complaint. And yeah, it was shocking to say the least. I don't know what do you feel about it? I mean, did any of those things look familiar to you when you read through that complaint?
Yeah, I read the complaint because, like you're saying, I think it was courageous of someone in Lee's position to come forward with that. And I think it just indicates what kind of pressure he must have been on throughout the last several months of him serving as the acting county administrator. I wasn't surprised at all with the information I read about some of the things that he mentioned around this particular incident. My past experience with at least one of those commissioners that were listed in that complaint was many times very similar. That type of way in which they conducted themselves, wanting to interject themselves into the county operations for positions, who was being hired, really, really unable to stay within, the role of, policy, procedure, those kinds of things. So, I have a lot of vivid memories of similar types of things happening. However, the difference here was that two commissioners were involved in this complaint at one time. And I don't recall having been experienced that type of an issue. And if I had, probably would have had to do the same thing Lee Washington did. So, I don't know about when you were serving as a county commissioner, if you ever, came across different times when you might have been either drawn into something like that or thought that was going on. But I wasn't shocked at all by what he reported.
I remember being a county commissioner and hearing oftentimes, and probably from you or your office, that you worked at the direction of the Board of County Commissioners, but not one individual or two individual commissioners. So I know when you were there, everything was discussed at a board meeting to give you direction. I remember we had an agenda, and on the back of the agenda was this list of things that we were all working on. But it was only after the board, a majority, 4 or more, had given you direction to, do these things. So, yeah, that seems to be something that was hard for maybe a certain commissioner to understand. But yeah, it did sound a little familiar to me as well. Now, is there a criminal complaint? I've heard that there's been a criminal complaint
Yeah,
filed.
I was informed by pretty good source that there has been a criminal complaint filed. I know that that's probably, since this is one of the topics we're discussing here, and we've had a lot of questions from our viewers about it, that we'll be following up on, and we'll be watching that. I think the sheriff's office is rather busy with a lot of complaints right now, which, to me, is unfortunate for the community, especially for most citizens, to see those kinds of things happening. And I think that, some of the things that you're mentioning about how the board operated and discussed, I mean, these weren't new under an administration I served under. These were the way it's really performed throughout various commissions across the state and the country, that all the discussion about topics between commissioners happens at a regularly scheduled meeting, in public, open discussion, no decisions or directions given without lots of statistical analysis, some data. I think those are a lot of things that our viewers aren't seeing. They're not seeing the justification behind some of these different things. So I wasn't at all, as I said, surprised. I was saddened by the fact that a person in Lee Washington's position would have to resort to that kind of action to protect not only themselves, but I think Lee made it pretty clear along the way when he served as acting, that he was looking out for the employees that he was representing. And you wouldn't want to think that from the commission position they would be trying to direct staff that not going through the county administrator. So I really hope the new administrator right now, Charlie Bishop, has the ability to work within all 7 commissioners, and that they'll respect the fact that he's in charge, and that he has some experience, and he knows how to run these different departments, and he has some folks under him. Now, I do think that we've seen some growth in the county level of responsibilities in different departments, where we have directors, now deputy directors. And I think those kind of go against some of the thoughts about, making government larger or smaller. So I'm sure we'll have more information to talk about on that, especially since in the future, we're going to be talking about the recent budget that the board passed, and what some of those bigger ticket items are that are coming forward in the next few months.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting to look at that data, because I just think about the deputy county administrators. When you were a county administrator, we had 2. And at that time it was John Osborne and Karen Stewart. And now how many do we have? Like 4?
Well, there are 4 positions that are funded within the county administrator's budget. Ooh. And, we know that 2 are solid. That's Courtney DePaul and Brian Parnell, who we just mentioned, was appointed. But, we've also heard that 2 additional ones have been brought forward. And so we're anticipating seeing Andrew Butterfield and potentially the utilities director, Evan, come forward to be confirmed in the next regular meeting. And if that happens, then we will have 4 deputy county administrators, which I have to say, Mr. Bishop isn't the one who actually brought the 3rd and the 4th deputy county administrator in the budget. That was the prior permanent county administrator, Scott Hopes, who enlarged that role. But now it would appear that we're filling those positions, and they're pretty expensive.
And they're high paying. I think all of them are paid 200 or more a year, 200,000. You back in the day, we had a skeleton crew, and it does feel a little bloated to me, especially on the top end with some of these positions. But yeah, we'll have to take a look at that and report back. That sounds interesting.
Well, we will. And so, for today, those are 3 of the hot topics that we've been getting a lot of feedback on what the status of those are. So we wanted to bring a quick report. Again, Reggie will be back with us for the next show, and we thank you all for watching. We also want to remind you, as you are watching, to share with your friends and your colleagues that you can subscribe to us on our YouTube channel at The Big Picture Manatee. And while you're there, obviously like us there so that you can continue to get updates. We're also on Facebook, and you can share that out with your friends too at The Big Picture Manatee. And our webpage has our different episodes on it, and you can find us there at thebigpicturemanatee.com. So good being with you today, Misty. Look forward to seeing you again here shortly in a few weeks.
Yes, as always, great to see you, Sherry. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you for watching.
Thank
Bye.
you. See ya.